Just quickly following up with a question from Asanka asking what equities, commodities, and bond yields do we use to do our intermarket analysis? Now, if we just quickly take a look at our trading view charts, Asanka, for the equities, we normally use the three. For these charts, it's mostly the futures markets, which is also important to note. So, not very different, of course, from the cash markets. But the reason why we choose to look at the futures ones is because, of course, they're trading throughout the session. So it gives us a broad range throughout the day, as opposed to just looking at the cash opens or cash markets. So looking at the US side, we do like to use the three majors, which is the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, as well as the NASDAQ. Then for Europe, we like to use the major ones, which is the DAX as well as the Euro Stoxx 50. But of course, you can also use things like the CAC and the FTSE. No problem using any of those. Turning to Asia Pac side, we also like to look at Australia and also the Nikkei 225. Now, if you have room for another chart, of course, you can also look at things like the Hang Seng. You can look at the CSI 300 in terms of getting a broader view over the Asian equities as well. But we like to look at these seven to give us a good range or good idea of how global equities are doing across the board. And then, of course, on this screen, we also have the volatility index for S&P 500 as a good gauge of overall market or equity volatility. Then turning to the commodities side, we have the major metals. So, of course, gold, silver, and platinum. Gold being the also considered as a safe haven. A good gauge not only for overall risk sentiment, but also just for overall interest rate expectations, as a main mover for gold is obviously moved in the bond market, which is normally moved due to interest rate expectations overall. Looking at something like WTI, Brent crude oil markets, also a very important consideration for overall commodity evaluation. And then copper, also known as Dr. Copper, of course, because it normally is a very good gauge of overall economic wellness and can be a real mover in terms of risk sentiment as well. Then turning to the bond side, the biggest one, obviously the most important one we need to watch is the US market. Now, we prefer to look at the 10 years across the board for most of them. So if we just quickly take a look at this one, we have the US 10-year. We also have the German, Canadian, New Zealand, Japanese, UK, and Australian government 10-year yields. Now, what we're looking at here at the bottom isn't only the Italian or the German one. This is basically the BTB Bund spread. So it's the bond yield spread between Italian 10-year and the German 10-year. That's normally a good gauge of overall risk premiums or a risk premium gauge for the overall euro. Whenever this moves up, normally showing stress for the euro, and whether it's moving down, normally showing more positive moves for the euro. So that is what we're looking at in terms of bond yields. Obviously, what you can also do for the US more specifically, as it is the main driver normally for risk sentiment, is only looking at the 10. You can also add the 5-year, add in the 2-year. Just to see what the yields in terms of the US is doing across the board. That can also be helpful in terms of overall yields. But that is what we're looking at in terms of equities, yields, and commodities. When it comes to equities, just keep in mind that these are the ones that we look at. But this isn't to say that these are the only ones you should look at. Obviously, we like to look at the market across the board, which is if you look at our Zenith intermarket monitor, you can see we look at a lot more than that's available on those charts. So there is a lot more to look at opposed to those ones, but these are the ones that we prefer to look at on a daily basis. But of course, that can change if there's something specific we want to look at. So that's just a quick rundown on those ones, Asanka. Any other questions, make sure to let us know.